Hello, hello. We are back again for week 2 of The Artist's Way. Let's dive into it. So the theme of week 2 is recovering a sense of identity, as we can see here. And just a little preview here, when I read this little description over in the sidebar, they're talking about boundaries. And I'm like, well, this is going to be great. This is a topic that I love. It is something that I feel like I've done a lot of work in. It's also something that I'm sort of like, anytime someone comes to me with a personal problem, I'm like, man, it sounds like a boundary issue. So it feels like a very familiar topic. I have started to read this a little bit because you might recognize that I'm wearing the same thing I was wearing in the end of the week 1 video. I just recorded the end of the week 1 video and I started to read the text for week 2. Then I was like, well, I want to make sure my mind isn't, clouded up with week 2 stuff so I can focus on week 1 stuff. So I'm just going to share a little bit of what I've read so far, but then I'm going to end this. I'm going to keep doing morning pages, take myself on a little artist day, do all of the things that I am supposed to do. And then I'll come back to you in a week to say, well, here's what I learned from the theme of week 2. So what I've seen so far as I've gone through here is some particular topics. Poisonous playmates and crazy makers. And right here from reading both of these, it was, this is something like this chapter I feel like would be so helpful for someone who is maybe at the beginning of learning like what boundaries are and kind of saying like, well, I don't even understand. Like, why would I need boundaries? Like, what does that even mean? I feel like this chapter would be really helpful because there's a lot of talk in here about the poisonous playmates is sort of the same thing of like you decide you want to start. I don't want to use the example of going to the gym because that's such a classic like January thing. But you decide you want to start doing something different, and then the friends that you used to not do that and complain about not doing it with might not want you to do that. They might be like, well, why would you go to the gym? Because wouldn't it be more fun to like watch Gilmore Girls together? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it really just would. So I don't love that example. She uses the example in here of the friends you used to drink with not being excited for you to get sober. And I'm like, well, that is kind of intense, but yeah, that's a good example. So we're going to reflect on this in a week. I will come back to you. I will be linking the playlist, of course, for the whole thing and the book as well, because come on, guys, it's the book. I just love it. And I'll see you in a week. Hello again. We are back at the end of the week 2, to reflect on how the second week of the Artist's Way journey has gone. Now, as I talked to you about before, week 2 is about recovering a sense of identity, which is largely about boundaries. So, as I sort of predicted in my previous chunk of this video, a lot of what this week covered was stuff that felt to me like, okay, these are lessons I'm not currently learning because I've spent a lot of time on them in the past. That said, it's such a valuable week. I think boundaries are a challenging concept for anyone who hasn't learned the hard way what they are. So I think this book, if that's something that's like new to you, going through this chapter and learning about, for example, crazy makers, poisonous playmates, all these sorts of things might make you go, oh, wow, yeah, some relationships, maybe some relationships in my life are not as functional as I thought they were. Maybe it's not all about me. Like, Certainly it's good to look at ourselves in a relationship and say, like, what dynamic am I bringing to this? What responsibility can I take for this situation? But that doesn't mean that we should do that with people who are abusive, or like really, really crossing our boundaries. So that said, yes, I think it's a really wonderful chapter, a necessary week for, probably most of us. So some quotes that I liked this week. There was a lot of talk about self-sabotage. Early in our creative recovery, self-doubt can lure us into self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is such a common thing. Like, your brain is trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you from going into an unfamiliar place, which, could be better, but because different means scary, our brains are like, no, don't go there. And so we do things to sabotage ourselves. So being aware of that is really wonderful, really important. There also was some talk in here in the part about, having like your friends who are artistically blocked are not going to be happy for you getting yourself unblocked. And, in terms of setting boundaries here, this quote says, be alert to subtle sabotage from friends. You cannot afford their well-meaning doubts right now. Their doubts will reactivate your own. And I'm sure this is something that many of us can relate to, of, bringing something that is a little tender, is a little sensitive to someone and going like, this is okay, right? And, they're not going to say, oh yeah, wow, it's awesome, it's wonderful. They're going to say, yeah, it's not going to work because XYZ reason. And in terms of, art or publishing a book or whatever the thing is, it's very, very easy then to say, oh, you're right. And then your doubts come even stronger and stronger. And you're like, never mind, I'm not even going to bother doing it. This book also has lots of little quotes over on the sidebar. And there was one from Robert Louis Stevenson that I really liked. I highlighted this. It says, to know what you prefer, instead of humbly saying amen to what the world tells you ought to prefer, is to have kept your soul alive. This is a continuation of this part about, being mindful of people who are blocked, who might, not intentionally want to sabotage your journey, but they might subconsciously want to. And it says here, so essentially it's saying, like, focus on your own growth, your own unblocking. Soon enough, you will be a bridge that will allow others to cross over from self-doubt into self-expression. And it's encouraging you for now, don't try and do that. Don't try and be that too soon. Draw a sacred circle around your recovery. And I love that. And I also love this. This is like the goal, this quote here. You will learn that it is actually easier to write than not write, paint than not paint, and so forth. You will learn to enjoy the process of being a creative channel and to surrender your need to control the result. Oh, so much good stuff in here, Ms. Cameron. So much good stuff. Okay. A few more quotes. Let's just go through them. This one was interesting to me. As blocked creatives, we are willing to go to almost any lengths to remain blocked. That's not just about being creative. That's just, again, about your subconscious or your inner child or your ego trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you from going where you haven't gone before. And this here, I love this part because I'm a big, big fan of embracing our doubts and not hiding from them. Here's the quote. We have our doubts about all of this creativity stuff, and those doubts are very powerful. Unless we air them, they can sabotage us. Many times, in trying to be good sports, we stuff our feelings of doubt. We need to stop doing that and explore them instead. I love it. I love it so much. I am very familiar with hiding from doubts, pretending they don't exist, and it never really works. It's not the way. Again, in creative recovery, it is not necessary that we change any of our beliefs. It is necessary that we examine them. Again, all of this, I think, goes into like the morning pages, the importance of just that time of being honest with yourself. These pages that no one else is going to read, no one else is going to see, and you can just be as cranky or as ornery or as, whiny, whatever it is, you can just let it all out in the page. Such a good thing. Now there's a section in here about attention that I really, really liked, about paying attention to what's going on around you. She talked a lot in here about her grandmother's letters that were like flora and fauna reports, details about, the flowers that are blooming and the birds that have come back and all that stuff. And this resonated a lot with me because I feel like I do my own sort of flora and fauna report every day that we go for a walk and I observe what's blooming and what cats, like the cats in the neighborhood, are out and about. And I used to count how many cats I saw on the walk. Now it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And I'm like, oh, look, there's I mean, I've named most of them, right? So I'm like, oh, there's Slippers, yep, and there's Honey Boy. So that's how I like to pay attention to the world around me. The quality of life is in proportion always to the capacity for delight. The capacity for delight is the gift of paying attention. And one last slightly longer section I highlighted that was, I thought, really beautiful. Writing about attention, I see that I have written a good deal about pain. This is no coincidence. It may be different for others, but pain is what it took to teach me to pay attention. In times of pain, when the future is too terrifying to contemplate and the past too painful to remember, I have learned to pay attention to right now. The precise moment I was in was always the only safe place for me. Each moment taken alone was always bearable. Oh, love it. Such good stuff. Another excellent week. We loved that. Now, naturally, it is a priority for me to do my morning pages every day. I will admit that one day they turned into evening pages because why was that? I think there were a lot of errands and work and stuff going on, and then I don't know, I got pushed to the end of the day. Not ideal, still got them done. That's the most important thing. If there's no wrong way to do them, then I think as long as they are done, then great, you did it. And this week for Artist Date, I had bought I've been looking for watercolor pens, markers ever since seeing them one time and being like, wait, did I really see them, or was that a dream? Was that like a fever dream? Like what's real here? I saw some at the stationery store. I was like, is this really what I think it is? And it's not a watercolor marker in terms of like you can fill it with water and then use paint, nothing like that. But it was a little brush tip pen, and I have a set of those, and I have this little notebook that I keep in my desk, this cute little square notebook that I use for just doing random little arty things. They're not beautiful by anyone else's standards probably, but I just love it. I have like markers and stickers and things in this drawer. So I took a little play date with myself to just see how these new markers were working, kind of lost myself in coloring in some shapes, enjoyed that. I thought that was a very successful option for an artist date, especially close to home using what you already have, except admittedly I did buy the pens, the markers like a week ago. So let me just check handy little notebook and see what activities struck me this week. Yes. Oh, I made a list of things I enjoy doing. Yeah, that was one activity where she says make a list of things you enjoy doing and of the last time that you did each of them. I didn't actually do that part, but I still mentally noted that some of these things, like, yeah, I don't know if you can say you enjoy like doing yoga, for example, when you haven't done it in 2 years. Again, she didn't say it with that judgment. That's me saying it with judgment. It's just sort of a reminder for me that like, yeah, I might want to incorporate that into my day soon. Another continuation from the previous week of adding more imaginary lives or other lives that you might live if you weren't doing what you're currently doing. And that's just a fun thing to explore. And then 10 tiny changes. And I believe I already did do some of these this week. Yes, so great job to me. And yeah, it was great. I highly recommend the book. As always, I'm going to try and not say that every 10 seconds when I'm recording these videos. But I enjoyed this week a lot as well. I will come back to you soon, in a week, with week 3 to let you know how that's going. As always, I'm going to link the book down below. I'm going to link the playlist as well. So if you are just starting with this video for some reason, you can go back and watch the first video and just follow through the whole thing. And I will always encourage you to join at any time that it makes sense for you. So see you next time.